Welcome to Title Talk, a podcast for real estate investors where we cover tips, tricks, and trends in the industry.
This podcast is all about providing valuable insights to help you maximize your investment opportunities.
Whether you're a seasoned pro or just getting started, Title Talk is the place to stay in the know and get inspired.
So grab your headphones, tune in, and let's talk title.
Hey.
Hi.
How are you?
Good. How are you today?
Amazing.
I'm so happy to be here with you today.
I'm happy to be here with you too. I feel like it's been a little while since we've been able to hang out, right?
Like 2 weeks since the last Title Talk.
Well, it's always 2 weeks. It's a pretty bad echo. Yeah. Do you guys hear an echo? Am I only the?
No, I hear an echo.
It's pretty bad.
Yeah.
If you guys hear an echo, let me know.
Hit the E. Hit the E.
No, I don't hear anything. Let's see. Yeah, that's a little better. Help us out, guys. Let me know how the sound is. That's still really it's like super echoey. Hey, Dre, do better. Michelle, nice to meet you.
Thank you. You as well.
I'm super excited to dive into your whole business and all of the incredible things that are going on in title in Colorado. But I would first want to ask Dina to give you an introduction because I need to know more about you before I start grilling you with questions.
We like to just start these things where he's totally blind and doesn't really know what's happening, because then anything that's going to happen, he's not,
I'm better spontaneous.
He's on the fly.
Yeah, I'm an improviser.
I love it.
Former entertainer, now
Yes.
Improviser.
Yes.
Professional.
Real estate improviser.
So Michelle is a licensed account executive with Fidelity in Colorado. And she's been with the company about 5 years, been in the industry since 1989, right?
You've been in title since
1989.
Wow.
Big deal.
Wow. So what were you, like 3?
Yes. Thank you for saying so. I started out very early. I think I was like 19 when I got into the real estate business.
Incredible.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
And I got to tell you, she sent me her bio, and there's something I got to read. Normally, I just like to shoot off the cuff, but I want to read this. So she wakes up with a sense of excitement and purpose, driven by her passion for helping real estate professionals succeed in their careers while achieving a fulfilling work-life balance.
Wow. You know what I think is really interesting about that is that you speak to your purpose and then also about helping others achieve theirs. And I think so few people really pay attention to the important things about living life in a way that it's purpose driven, right? I mean, I got asked a question today on a podcast. How do you keep from getting burnt out? And the answer that I had was love what you do.
Yeah.
Because I love what I do, and I can do this 7 days a week, and I can do it all day long. And it's like, this doesn't feel like it's a tremendous amount of work to me because I love doing this job. Now, do I get physically burnt out? Occasionally. And then I got to take like a day off after having gone for 2 weeks, but I absolutely adore what I do.
And you love helping people.
Absolutely. Yeah. So that's neat. I already feel like we're so aligned.
Yeah. I mean, that's one thing we all have in common for sure, is just a passion for helping other people grow.
Well, tell us a little more about your business out there, Michelle. What do you guys got going on? What have you been seeing in the Colorado market? How is the investor space shaping up or holding up against this, new norm of really high interest rates and super low inventory? And it's like bad news is somewhat good news and good news is bad news. Like employment is down, interest rates have to go up. What? I thought that was a good thing. Like, what are we doing here? So how is it all shaping up in this wonky world we're in?
Yes, that's a lot to cover. And I'll tell you, I'm sure what we're feeling here in Colorado is what everybody's feeling all over the country, right? Especially with the lower inventory. And here's the funny thing that, I have a lot of conversations with people in the real estate industry every day, all day. And it's either one or the other, right? If we go back to COVID times, right, rates were low, but it was a feeding frenzy, right? Everybody was throwing money at offers and trying to get under contract. And And then now we're lower inventory, higher interest rates. People are waiting to see what's going to happen with the rates. So everybody's just dipping a toe in, but maybe they're not committing. And for your investor buddies, it's a little bit more challenging to find a house. If you're a fix-a-flipper, or if you're a investor that wants to hang on to it and have a rental or any of those kind of things, it's just hard to find property because we just have such a low inventory. So that's how it feels here in Colorado. And then the houses that are on the market are staying on the market a little bit longer. I don't know if you guys are experiencing that in Arizona too.
We are, but it's only a specific type of house that's sitting on the market for an extended period of time. It's the ones that are not retail ready, right? So if a person hasn't done an extensive renovation or really staged the house right or really presented the property in its like top form, it's going to sit on the market, right? The buyers are being way more picky right now. If they're going to pull the trigger on a 7.5% mortgage, it better be my dream house. And so
Right.
there's all of that I think we're facing right now in the market. And so, I think that because of that, if you're really good at what you do and you put a good product out there, your inventory disappears, right? So we're putting fix and flips on the market right now. They're getting snapped up immediately. But as an investor, I've been finding that I can go and find original condition or distressed condition houses that have been sitting 30, 60, 90 days. And now I have really negotiable sellers. Now I have real estate agents that are like, I just don't know what's going on. And I can come in and give a really, a real offer that makes sense for its condition, right? So also I think real estate agents have been overpricing things, just, unaware of where the market's gone and looking at July 2022 numbers and thinking they can still get numbers like that. And then getting numbers like that in some instances, it's wild. It's the wild, wild west.
Well, and, I think sometimes, they're taking listings with an unrealistic seller just because they want listings. And
Right.
you can turn listings into, additional listings, and you can find buyers when you have inventory on the market, but you still have sellers that think that they can get today what they got 6 months ago.
Right. And I think that's a challenge, right? Because you have to be able to set expectations with your sellers on what the market is right now, today, right? And it could change in a couple of weeks, but we still can't compare it to 6 months ago either. And I think that's where just a really great agent that comes in that says, look, I could list this for whatever you want to list it for, but if it sits on the market, who are we helping, right? We got to be smart about it and do our homework and be students of the industry for sure.
I love
So
that.
you got in when you were 19. What prompted that decision? Because I know when I was 19, I was still trying to figure out what I wanted to be when I grow up.
Well, my story is kind of embarrassing because I pretty much hated school. And I was on my way to college, literally at the point of where I had a dorm room and a roommate. And I was packing up my stuff and I was like, yeah, no, I'm not going to go. And at the time, my mom was a mortgage loan officer, and I had been helping in the office in the summers. And, this is back in 1989. So we were definitely paper heavy. So there was jobs for people like me that filing and answering the phones. And I was slowly learning the industry. So I haven't honestly been in title that long, but I started out in the mortgage industry. And I did that in Albuquerque, New Mexico for about 15 years. And that's where I started learning my audience and trying to help real estate agents. And then it filtered into title and I got on the other side of things. So I was a second generation loan officer, even my mother's best efforts to keep me out of the business. She wanted me to go, get a real job and go to college. And I was like, ugh, I kind of hate school. So, the challenges there were being very young and calling on 45-year-old agents and saying, surely you want to trust me with your business. And they're like, yeah, no, we don't, pretty much. And so I had to get real smart. And I did a lot of realtor interviews and said, what are you doing to be successful? And who are your customers? And what's your audience? And as I was doing that, trying to get smart and stand out amongst my competition, I found my passion, which was legitimately helping people grow to the next level. And whatever that looked like, if they were like, I need to grow a team, I figured out how to help them. If they were a 30-year veteran that was looking for an exit strategy, I called people I knew and said, how does your exit strategy apply to real estate? And I just tried to get really smart. And as I was doing that, I fell in love with marketing and later on social media and, door knocking and everything that everybody did to just be successful.
And you very rarely hear about those kinds of skills getting nurtured in the title world, except for people that are in your position, right? Where it's your job is to get out there and really make an impact and bring new business into and the same goes for, in my industry as a wholesaler or real estate agents or mortgage loan officers. Like, you have to figure out who your customers are and then go out and understand what they want and then give it to them. And if you can give enough people that are your customers what they want, what'll end up happening is they will actually start doing business with you, and it snowballs and mushrooms and grows. But it's always, you have to step out first. You've got to provide the marketplace value before the market will say, hey, we accept you and we want to continue watching you succeed and grow. So really interesting to hear that perspective come from somebody in title that was like really just focused on how do I grow. I love that. But there's probably some really interesting ways or differences that go on in Colorado with respect to growth, with especially in terms of laws and rules. Because I noticed in your title it says that you're a licensed. What is the exact title here?
Licensed account executive.
And
my title doesn't say licensed anything.
No. And so I think that begs the question: what license do you hold, and is that a requirement for working in this business in Colorado?
Because we talked about how escrow officers, do they have badges on episode number 1?
Yes.
Right?
Isn't that funny how it's so many differences between state to state? So yes, to answer your question, I am licensed, and all of our, whether it's a sales executive like me or an escrow officer in our office, has to be licensed. So we have to study, we have to go to school, we have to take a test, and we have to renew every few years. So because they consider us selling title insurance. So we are governed by the Division of Insurance, and we have to follow their rules and regulations.
That is crazy to see.
Are you guys impressed? Are you impressed with me now?
Yes.
Well, you're the first licensed person that we've had on Title Talk.
So can you also sell life insurance then?
No. So it's a completely separate insurance license. Yeah. So if you wanted to go and do like life insurance or maybe health insurance, to small businesses or something, those are separate, but it falls under the same family of the licensing.
So what does it look like compared to getting a real estate license or a loan officer's license?
It's probably a little different in the sense that luckily on the title side, we don't have to have continuing education credits. So as long as we renew our license, we're okay. But obviously on the mortgage lending side and the real estate side, they have to have so many hours of the CE stuff, right, to keep their license valid. Yeah.
How many hours did you have to take to originally get your license?
I'm trying to remember like what it equated to in hours, but I remember the test was scary. Not everybody passes it the first time. Luckily I did, but I had really great teachers in the title industry that were like, we're going to make sure you pass this right away. And I think some of the background on just the mortgage lending and business in general helped. Some of it, I was like, oh, I think I can remember that. So I remember classes took a few weeks, but I don't remember what that equated to in, hours.
Okay, so for those of you guys who are just joining us, we've got Michelle Camino in from Colorado, and we would love it if you could drop a C in the chat if you are from Colorado, doing business in Colorado, or you want to do business in Colorado.
And speaking of that, I'm really interested because I do have a quite a large base of people that I work with, students, franchises, and just viewers that join us from Colorado. And oftentimes, every state has specific rules and nuances and things that are really just specific to, like Arizona, for instance. Is there anything in the world of title or investing or things of that nature that we would need to be careful of or think about when doing business in Colorado?
Yes. And, I'll give Dina some shout out to this because we were having a conversation earlier about wraps, right? And she was like, I don't think you guys could do wraps in Colorado. And you know what? I called our compliance department because I was like, I think we can. But you're right, Dina, it's hard. Okay. So there's a ton of what I would say if somebody is interested in doing a wrap and they've got a seller that's willing to, finance some of the funds for their new buyer, and we can't do it on any government loans. So no FHA.
That's nationwide, though. That's nationwide.
Yeah, okay. We can't do it on SBA loans or a HELOC, right? Which makes sense because the HELOC, we can't control the balance. And then there's a few banks that have said, no, we don't want you doing that. And we're going to ask you to cease and desist. So my answer to any of your investors that love to do that sort of thing is we will treat it on a case-to-case basis. Bring it in. I would be happy to get some details, take it to our compliance department, have them give the blessing, and then we'd move on from there. So
totally
can
fair.
we do that? Yes. Is it going to be fun? Absolutely. It's going to be a challenge. So if you're looking to do something really creative, yeah, I'm all in. We could do it together.
Well, our audience does have a lot of creative people.
For sure. So that's on the wrap side. But what about subject to? Is it the same for subject to, or is any differences there?
Subject to, fill me in exactly what you mean by subject to.
Let's just say, for instance, I've got a seller that is, they've got existing financing on their property of like 2.5%, and they're willing to sell me the house and let me take over their existing mortgage. And so I want to take their property subject to their existing loan. This is something that routinely gets done around the country. And so I'm wondering, is this same things that you're talking about right now available, or can you do subject to out there the way that we would be able to do it easily here in Arizona or other markets?
It's basically just like excluding that specific mortgage.
Right.
That they're selling out in the contract.
Yes. Thanks for clarifying. I think, we look at that as sometimes an assumption. And we're seeing a few more of those, right? Because the interest rates on some of these.
Yeah, not so much an assumption, because the mortgage isn't going to change names. It's going to stay in the original person's name, but the deed will change. The title will change.
Right.
They'll try.
Yes.
And you'll take title subject to that lien.
Yeah, I'm thinking, I haven't seen that come across my desk, so I'm thinking not.
Wow.
Yeah.
It's really,
really. But
every
to clarify, I will always be happy to follow up and find out for sure. But that's not something that I'm seeing pass by my desk.
And
so
we're
I'll check
seeing a
on
bunch of these in the chat too. I love that we've got some people from Colorado that are here.
Yay.
So all of you guys that are in Colorado, you got to like and love and share this with your community so they can learn from Michelle just like we are.
Absolutely. So
yes.
We've covered subject to and potential wrap deals, but what about wholesale? Is there any interesting things that we need to keep in mind about wholesaling, assignments, double escrows, things of that nature?
Yes, on the wholesale side. No, so I have a couple of wholesale customers. And to be honest, Fidelity Title, again, as Dina probably knows, it's more of a case-to-case basis. So the wholesaling piece is a little bit challenging for us because more of our company philosophy here in Colorado, sometimes those transactions make us feel uncomfortable. And not that they're a bad transaction, but again, we can do them, but it's on a case-to-case basis. So they're allowed, but
let me give you an example of like something that makes title and escrow uncomfortable, right? When it comes to insurability. And I'm sure you can come up with some really great examples, but we would definitely be uncomfortable if there's no way that we would have direct contact with the seller.
Of course.
So like if there's no conversation that we have where we know the seller is actually agreeing to the sales price and to sell their property, that is going to make things real uncomfortable. And that's going to be something where we're going to have to resign from the transaction.
Understood. So disclosures essentially are the key, right? Mm-hmm. Like if everybody if there's a disclosure being done, then that shouldn't be a problem. But you guys don't have any restrictions against like assignments or doing double escrows or like pass through closings. Those are okay?
Yes, again, there's going to be some disclosures so everybody's aware, right? That they've purchased this property and they're turning around and selling it right away. All of that is going to be disclosed at the closing table. So that's one thing that, sometimes that makes.
And it's the
People
same
want
thing here in Arizona. So it's either done
Yeah.
through the traditional AAR contract where they check the box, or it's a contract where it's your own contract as a cash buyer directly to the seller that's, agreeing to all the terms.
Yeah, makes sense.
And
Exactly.
you disclose specifically that you're purchasing the property as an investor and you don't know what your exit strategy is. And you may wholesale, you may fix and flip, you may do whatever it is that you want to do, but you
Right.
spell it all out.
Right. And
Right.
that's the way it works here is like she just said, as long as we're disclosing, it's never an issue. But where the problems happen is when, things are done in the shadows, or like, people aren't aware that you're wholesaling the contract. And then, everybody gets to the closing table and they're like, well, who's this person? Right. So that can be problematic for, the real estate agent involved, or the title people involved, or the investor involved, and obviously the seller if they're unaware, and now that's at the closing day and they're like, well, what's going on here, right? So all those things make a lot of sense. Do you see a lot of wholesale transactions come through your office, or is it like not as prevalent?
Not as prevalent lately. And recently, like I would say since maybe last summer, I saw a couple last summer, but it still wasn't huge. And I think part of that is, with the disclosures and being transparent, is we're working with wholesalers that we've worked with for a long time. And
Right.
we want to maintain these long-term relationships. So we're just super careful with who we partner with, and people that are willing to sign the disclosures and be upfront. And like you said, they're not doing business in the shadows. So again, it's important to us that we have long-term relationships and take good care of people. So we want to disclose everything, right? So everybody's
And your
comfortable.
market is tight too. I mean, inventory levels in Colorado, from my understanding, like they're really low. So it's
They're
hard
really
to find deals.
I mean, it's
Yeah.
like that everywhere though. It's
Yeah.
I don't think it's any worse in Colorado than it is in Arizona, or even California for that matter. It's like the inventory has just disappeared, and the reason for it is there's all these homeowners right now holding the 2 to 4% loans that they're just they're unwilling to let go of right now, because the rates are at 7 or more, right? And so
Right.
what are you going to do? Sell your house with a 2.5% loan and buy something for less money because you can afford less now because of where the rates are? I mean, it kind of doesn't make any sense, right? So you've got all these people that have become accidental landlords. So they're, instead of selling, they're keeping their property. And then if they have the liquid cash available, they're coming in with large down payments, buying down the mortgage rate, or they're paying cash for their transaction. And we're seeing a lot of that right now.
We are seeing a lot of
cash transactions. And it's like, man, where's all the money coming from? But these are people's second homes. And so, the tricky part for me is, and when I'm trying to analyze what's going to happen, or like create a crystal ball, if you would, is 1 in 5 houses are owned by an investor in the United States.
That's a crazy statistic, right? I mean, that's a crazy statistic.
1 in 5 is owned by an investor, and the investors are holding on right now because, well, their rents have gone up, but rents are starting to slide down a little bit.
Yes.
The other thing about the reason why investors are holding on right now is they know that rates are higher, and so rates are higher, so they're not maybe going to get top dollar, so they want to wait it out. But my thought is, what happens when we creep towards 5 again, or once we hit 5 again? Do all the investors that have do 1 out of 5 houses just suddenly appear on the market? And do those investors all start dumping? And we just heard recently in the news that BlackRock is turning off purchasing single family homes altogether, and they're moving into more emerging markets now.
Really?
That's their next strategy. Yeah, they're turning right off. And so there's a whole change of guard coming in right now, that we're sort of looking at the investor space and saying, okay, well, I wonder what's going to end up happening with this. And so it's an interesting thing. And, it makes you question where the market will head in 2024. Do you have any thoughts on that?
Crystal ball prediction.
Yeah, crystal ball prediction. Okay. So I have a couple of philosophies on that, because first of all, obviously, I've been in the business in a while, so I've seen ups and downs. And now I've never lived through a pandemic before, so that was a new one for me. But I remember when I first got into the business, we were just coming down from double digits. And I know a lot of people that maybe are newer to the industry, or maybe have only been in for a couple of years. They don't want to hear that. And I'm like, we don't care, what it was like back in the day, what the interest rates were. Because they'll say, yeah, but you could buy a house for such a smaller amount. Yeah, well, I didn't make as much money then either, right? And my philosophy is if somebody's motivated to move, like if they might have a low interest rate, but they might really hate their house that they bought, that they really needed to have, right? And I'm also of the philosophy that I want to be educated and have and read a lot of material so I could be a student of the industry and have a sense of what people are thinking is going to happen, people that are way smarter than me. But I also happen to believe in, controlling the controllables. I can't control the interest rates and I can't control what's happening with how many houses are available for sale. But what I can control is my efforts and my attitude and how many phone calls I make and how many people I'm reaching out to, because there's still business being done, right? There are still people, even if we have low inventory, somebody's selling them, right? And somebody's buying them. So I want to be in with those people that are doing the work. And
I love
and part of my crystal ball is what activity am I seeing? Because I feel like I can kind of be on the front lines, because when realtors start calling me and saying, hey, can you run a couple of net sheets for me? Or can you, help me with this? Or I'm going to market this neighborhood, or I'm going on a listing appointment. When those sort of conversations, or even they're calling me like, I'm about to go on this appointment and this property is weird. Can you just help me? Can we do an O&E and can we take a look at this, because this seems really strange and I need to have a better understanding and be educated before I go in and meet with my, my smart sellers. When that activity picks up for me, I sort of feel like good things are coming. And that could be me being naive, but also walking around doom and gloom. Gosh, there's nothing to sell. There's nothing to buy, and kind of crying to myself doesn't help me, nor does it help any of my customers. So if I'm just out there like, look, let's worry about the interest rates later. Let's get the house that you love. Let's get that investment that you're really looking for, that has all the things that that check all your boxes. And maybe it might not be in the neighborhood that you were looking at, but let's think outside of the box. Maybe we go a little further. Maybe we look at different areas. So to me, I feel like I have a feeling things are going to get better just because of the activity I'm feeling.
Love
love
it.
her attitude.
It's totally uneducated, and it's going to be like the ball that you guys have ever heard of.
Well, Henry likes it too.
Yeah.
Can you hear him? Henry likes it
Yes. I have a cheering section now. Nice.
You do.
Yes, you do. You got three. You got three.
Yeah, and I think you got to
There he goes.
close it. Yeah.
Okay, so let's get into the nitty gritty of the fun topics of title talk.
Yes. So, as a person in title and escrow, I'm sure you've got things that you love about your clients and certain things that kind of turn you off about doing business with certain investors or certain types of clients. And so the first question we want to ask is, what are some of your biggest turnoffs in working with a client?
Oh my gosh. Anybody who has a hard time acting professionally, right? We are in a professional environment, and I struggle with working with people that are just mean, or feel like they need to yell at my team, or the girl that answers the phone. That to me is really horrendous. And I think we can communicate, and that's another thing. Sometimes real estate agents think we know everything that's going on in the transaction, when really that's not the truth. The real estate agents are the ones that know everything. They know who's fighting with who, who's upset, who's happy, and any kind of information like that is so helpful. So I just think, mean people suck. So if you have a bad, if you have bad temper or something like that, I don't have any patience for that, because this job is hard and no sense being mean,
I love
totally
that.
Agree.
So in the same breath, what turns you on? Relationships go.
Yes, I love a realtor relationship or an investor relationship where they have a bead on the market, where they take the time to be a student of the industry and they take the time to define who their perfect client is and appeal to them in that manner, saying, this is what you want, this is what you need, and this is who I like working with. And I think if they can define that and then we can build on that, that is amazing. And then open communication. If somebody's like, hey, I'd rather you text me, something that simple, than email me. Oh my God, that just lights me up too. Cause I'm like, thank God, now I know how to get a hold of you when I need you in an emergency. So that's the best thing. Open communication and being a student of the industry, man.
I love it. I
Awesome.
love it.
Awesome. So with that said, right, you've got certain clients that you love your communicative and really studious clients. You hate your mean ones. And the ones who yell. And I've been in an office before where there's been yellers, and I've been in the transaction before where the people weren't kind to the escrow officer. And I always find that really distasteful, and it's difficult to be around those kinds of situations because, of course, this is somebody who's assisting us in this situation. They're trying to facilitate this to go down, and this attitude kind of isn't going to help anybody. You're just going to make things worse, right? And so, it always is interesting to meet people or see people that take that road when they're communicating. But typically the ones who get super negative have really crazy things go on around them, right? And some of the stories that attach to these deals can be very scary. And so I wanted to ask next, do you have a ghost story that you can remember of a transaction or a house or a deal that was like the scariest situation you've ever been involved in?
Yeah. So, one that sticks out in my mind is it was a newer realtor relationship. So it was our first closing together. And we had multiple conversations around how we were going to help each other. And this particular transaction, it was time to close. And I don't know how you guys close in Arizona, but we used to have like the buyers and sellers in the same room, right? Since COVID,
really?
Yeah.
Together? For signing all the papers.
Everything together.
That's crazy to me.
That was crazy to me too, because coming from New Mexico and then coming to Colorado, and I'm like, why are they, we bought a house and I'm like, why are these people in a room? This is just totally weird. And we're signing loan documents. We're signing our loan documents, and I'm like, this is uncomfortable because they need not to know like how much we're borrowing.
Like, I'm just sitting there and like, wait till you see all the things I'm gonna do in your house.
Right. It was crazy. So on this one particular,
creepy.
Right? Crazy.
Weird,
yeah.
Oh, you're the person who put that god awful wallpaper up? Oh, nice to meet you.
I can't wait to steam it off.
Yeah, what is that smell coming from that back room? Yeah, so uncomfortable. And sometimes it's helpful because the sellers will be like, I'm going to explain the sprinkler system to you, but it does prolong the closing experience. We're like, come on, let's go, people. So this one particular one, the sellers and the buyers were in the room. And what I didn't know is that the sellers were going through a divorce, and they were very angry and very bitter. And I walk in just as supporting my listing agent to be like, hey, congratulations, we're here. And I was being cheerful and like, woohoo, you're selling your house. And these people gave me the evilest look. And the woman threw her pin at me and balled up some paper and threw it. I mean, she just went off because she was so upset that I was celebrating. And but my mistake, I didn't realize this was an under duress sort of situation. But I will never, ever forget that. And now I always tell my agents, I'm like, please tell us what's going on. So we don't come in there with a bottle of champagne. We bring a box of Kleenex. We need to know how to handle this situation. So that was like the worst ever because she was so mad.
Oh.
So today, like, you still have buyers and sellers signing all their stuff in the closing table together?
Yes. So COVID changed it a little bit. Isn't that the craziest thing? I'm so glad you guys are shocked by that, because everybody that's probably on this from Colorado is like, it's always been like that. What's so weird, right? That
can you
floored
not do
me.
that though? Can you say, hey, I'd prefer not to see these people? Can I
close without
can we,
them
yeah,
in the same
do
room?
we have to have a
Yes.
party? Like,
Do
is
they
this-
have a choice?
Yes, absolutely. Especially during COVID, because with all the social distancing and all that stuff, we were splitting up closings and not allowing the agents to attend and doing that sort of thing. So over the last couple of years, more and more people were like, we kind of like this split closing thing. This is actually really nice. And so we've been doing more and more of those. And of course, anybody can request that and we'll split them up. But traditionally, they still have the buyers and sellers close together.
So does it cost them more money if they split up?
Nope.
Okay.
No.
And what about do you ever use mobile notaries?
Oh yeah, absolutely. It seems like, and I'm sure everybody that's listening to this, it seems like as soon as the closing date is solidified, somebody goes on vacation or somebody leaves the country, right? And the beauty behind Fidelity National Title is we're a national company, right? As you guys know. So it's so wonderful if they're like, yeah, we're visiting our relatives in San Diego. We can facilitate either a mobile notary or get a courtesy closing in one of our branches. So that's one of the reasons I love working there, is because we can really have a concierge type service, which is great.
I want to know in the chat if anybody in any market thinks it's a good idea to have the buyer and seller at the title office closing together and signing together.
I mean, I would never want that to happen ever. Not just because we're wholesaling or whatever it is. It's like, I mean,
you'd have like 20 people in the room sometimes.
I could, yeah.
As a wholesaler, like
also,
there might be like literally 5 assignments.
There could be, and be like, who's this guy? Who's this guy? Who's this guy? Oh, he made $5,000. He made $5,000. He made $5,000. Oh wow! And then all of a sudden, the agent's like, I did my best, and it's like, well, maybe you didn't. So thinking of that, right? It's like, of course, I would not want to be in the same room with in a closing, but not just because of the wholesale situation. It's just that, look, it's awkward, right?
Yeah.
I only buy houses that need a lot of work, and so what if somebody's like, what's your plan? And my plan is to remove every ounce of you from that house. Like I want, like I'm gonna, every bit of you is gone. That's my plan. or not. Oh,
we are scraping this up.
Yeah. Or you look at somebody and they're like, oh, now I understand. What do you mean? Nothing. I just understand the house now. Now that I've seen you, I understand the house. Great, let's sign. But no, this is why you couldn't put me in one of those rooms, because I would mess it up. I would say something just so wrong, and they'd be like, "Have you ever had that? Have you ever had two people sit down and they're like,
we just don't like you. We don't want to sell to you now."
And within like 3 or 4 minutes, they were like, "I can't sell my house to this person anymore."
It sort of happened to me personally. So when we bought our first house in Colorado, we bought a house that was built in 1977, and we were going to just gut the entire thing. And this sweet couple who was the original owners had lived there, right? Raised their kids there, had all sorts of an emotional attachment to it. And we show up for closing, and she's like, I just want you to know that we had all the carpets cleaned. And I mean, I had literally contractors coming the next day to like demo the entire guts. We were just gutting the whole thing. And I didn't have the heart to be like, you have white carpeting in the kitchen. We're taking all of that out. And so I bit my tongue, but there's been plenty of instances where closers have come out and been like you, where they're going to say something and they're like, that was awful. Because these people were like, oh yeah, we're scraping the whole thing and rebuilding, and these people are crushed, right?
There's a couple times I ask, like, hey, real quick, just a question here. What was the thought process behind putting carpet in the bathroom?
What is that? That's just wrong. You can't clean it.
No. And if there's a man in the house, it's not a good situation, right? That carpet's definitely going to be gross. Moving on. So
I am still like blown away that this is a real thing. Like as a previous life, I was in the real estate industry, one of the things I would do as a listing agent is tell all of my sellers, like, we need to make this house look like that has nothing to emotionally tie somebody to you. So take down all the pictures, take down anything that somebody can't mentally move in with a clean slate.
Right.
So to then be in the closing room with those people who have to have major closure in their life for whatever reason, good or bad, in a distressed market, I can imagine that would have been extremely challenging. If it was a foreclosure sale or a short sale or things like that. I am freaking shocked.
Can you imagine buying a short sale and you're signing, be like, I'm going to make so much money on this house, and be like, hey, by the way, how's your credit? Just kidding.
Right? Oh my gosh. I know. Terrible. I know.
Look, see, this is why you couldn't put me in one of those situations, because I would absolutely, everybody would be like, that man can never come back to a closing again. He's the worst.
Yes, yeah. I would say we are quarantining you in your own little corner, and you're going to sign everything over here quietly by yourself, and then we'll handle everybody else in this other room.
Oh, my goodness. My goodness. So we have this section called title traps, but I feel like in Colorado, it's the closing. Right? Like,
yeah. I mean, do they like meet and go to lunch before the closing? Like, is that a thing? Like, the buyers and sellers interact prior to that day?
If they're happy, no, I don't know. I'm not aware of that. But, at the closing table, usually the agents are smart enough to say, this is not amicable. We fought the entire process. We had to negotiate 1,000 times. We don't want these people in the same room. Okay, that's totally fine. But again, that has to be communicated to us, because we don't know, because it's normal and customary for everybody to be in the room. Which I know is weird. It's blowing your mind right now, but it's totally. Yeah. So it's all communication. We got to know, because we don't know what's going on.
Well, then asking the subsequent question, other than the closing, what situations could somebody get themselves into in a trap? For instance, okay, I want to give you an example so you know where I'm going with this. In Florida, in order to cancel a contract, a buyer just doesn't get typically in Arizona. If I want to cancel a contract, I just say, hey, I don't like your blue walls. And as long as I do that within the 10 days of my inspection period, I submit the cancellation to title and the agents, I'm out. Earnest money comes back. He can't
leave it blank, right? He just has to say, I don't like your blue walls.
I don't like the blue walls, right? Whatever it is. It's just for any reason, but a reason has to be given. So in Florida, you as the buyer have the right to cancel, but the seller has to accept your cancellation. So it's a mutual cancellation clause, right? And that means that even if I cancel in my inspection period, the seller can say, I don't accept your reason for canceling, and so I'm going to fight you for the EMD now. And that becomes problematic, because like I still have earnest money in some instances sitting at a title company right now, waiting for 6 months to pass so that I can actually get it released to me. But is there anything like that in Colorado, like any contractual or title traps that create issues for people that they need to think about if they're going to be investors out there?
Yeah, again, full disclosure, I'm not a licensed real estate agent, so I can't say I could speak to the contract really well. But we have people cancel and get their earnest money back all the time. And I think you're right. There's probably some dates and deadlines on our contract that you have to be cognizant of. But I don't see a whole lot of fighting around that. Once in a while, there's always that nightmare deal, right, where people are upset about something, or maybe it was too late, or, sometimes earnest money goes hard too, where you might be able to cancel, but you're not getting your money back.
Right.
And then there's some, so again, I'm not familiar with how all those dates work, but I hear about it every so often. That they might be fighting over earnest money or fighting on to get out of a contract. But usually I think Colorado let people out if they want to be out.
So can you use a contract to purchase real estate in Colorado that's not on your traditional real estate contract, or do you have to have an agent in the game at all times?
You have to have an agent in the game at all times. Yeah.
You can't do an unrepresented sale or purchase in Colorado?
You could do an unrepresented one. We charge more, but we're still going to require that they pull down a contract from the Department of Real Estate. on Colorado. They're not going to, they can't write a contract up on a napkin or anything.
Okay,
Yeah.
so I can't use like a 2-page purchase and sale agreement in Colorado and go and purchase somebody's house. I got to download the board approved or the state approved Colorado purchase and sale agreement. That is so interesting. I can literally purchase a house on the back of a napkin here in Phoenix.
Yeah, can't do that here. Yeah, we're a little bit more stringent, and because of just all the legalities and probably all those title traps you were just talking about, probably keeping those to a minimum. And again, our closing fee goes up a little bit when there's no agents involved, because all of a sudden we become the agent, right?
So the responsibility transfers to you in that circumstance then? Now you have to look out for the best interests of all the parties involved?
No, it doesn't legally transfer to us, but all of a sudden
liability
it falls on us, right? Because we're like, we want to make sure this transaction gets done. So we're like, where are the homeowners association documents? And you have to, you know what I mean? So it makes...
what I'm understanding here is that in a closing there, if there's no agent involved, right? Let's just say I do a deal between my neighbor. Okay. I buy my neighbor's house and we're there signing, and all of a sudden she's, Michelle says, oh, he got a really good price on this. But there's no agent involved, right?
What do you do?
And so now does this become like a liability issue for you? Do you feel like I need to call an agent to come in here and make sure that, it's capitalism and I'm not allowed to buy whatever I want, in the way I want it. So it's like there's some interesting nuance here that I want to dive into. What would the response be, and how would you deal with that?
Well, I'm telling you, if I was at a closing table, again, I'm not an escrow officer, but let's say it was just two friends selling a house to each other, and they had the contract, and somebody made that comment about, you got a good deal on this, I would have no opinion whatsoever. I would be more like, sign here. This is your next document. This is what you're signing. I wouldn't get in. I would just be Scrivener services and not negotiating anything, but just facilitating the transaction and dispersing.
So you know what I'm thinking? Agent outreach must be critical for success in Colorado.
Big time. I've got Colorado franchises that are they're crushing it out there. I had actually, so on our television show, our medic, he was, following Rahima, Pace, and I around for a whole season. And it was during COVID time. So his job was to see me every morning before we would shoot and stuff a Q-tip up my nose and then go test it to make sure I didn't have COVID before I got on set. Right. So that was his job, right. So every day this guy would collect my boogers. And he was just like,
that's sexy
a little bit. And he was just like, man, I gotta do something else. And then, he ends up, him and his wife find out that they're about to have a baby. So he's like, I really got to do something else. So he'd be in my office all the time watching what we were doing. And he's like, I want to do this. So he purchases a Keegley franchise. And now his business, like he's pulling in anywhere between $60,000 to $100,000 a month in income. And like his whole world has changed. Right. And to say this, he doesn't collect boogers anymore. But in that, right, his main methodology is working directly with agents, because I didn't understand that it's almost a requirement to do a deal in Colorado to have an agent involved. So people who are going direct to seller for deals they still have to interject somebody to get in there, or at least they got to use the right paperwork. And now
they get charged more.
Or they get charged more. Like, how much more are you charging them for a deal without an agent?
It's not that much. It's a couple $100. And there is agents that will act as a transaction broker, where they're like, I'm not listing the property, I'm not putting it on MLS, but I'm going to make sure that your paperwork is filled out properly. And they'll charge, way less than you would a regular commission. There's those, but there's a lot of agents that don't want to mess with that either. But there's some that absolutely will do that. So
anybody can just download the contract from the department and use it, even though they're not licensed.
Yes. And that's where that's where the burden falls on us, because as you guys can imagine, let's say we get a contract in from a consumer who, is doing a deal with his buddy, and
like a Pisbo.
And there's blanks. Well, who's going to talk about filling in these pieces of information that are on the contract. You can't just leave it
Right.
blank.
Right.
So that's why it all of a sudden it turns into, we're reaching out to the seller or the buyer and saying, there's blanks on your contract. It is not a fully executed contract. And then because they're not professional real estate agents, we have to bug them about dates and deadlines. And they might say, well, we're not going to do an appraisal, and we're not going to do, an inspection, and we're not going to, okay, as long as it's a cash deal, if there's a lender involved, they're going to require things, and who's paying for title policy, and right. So we become the person that's trying to negotiate when we're not licensed real estate agents. So that, I think that's why we are highly dependent on our professional agents to do that, because we need them.
Wow.
Wow. So I think, the next question we want to ask you is title tips for investors, but I think the first one we already uncovered. So anybody that's out there, agent outreach and building relationships with agents in Colorado, if you are unlicensed, is definitely going to be a wonderful tip to help you get ahead faster.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Yes.
What else could you give an investor as a piece of advice on how to do, because first you help people grow, right? So I'm 5'8". How do I become 5'10"?
Yeah, man. I tell you, I wouldn't be talking to you right now if I could figure that out, right?
You want to trade shoes?
I thought you were going to say I wouldn't be talking to you in real life if I knew you were 5'8".
No, doesn't matter to me. Doesn't matter to me whatsoever. Yes, and and how I help people grow is really just getting into their business, and I do marketing audits with real estate people, whether it's investors or just regular real estate agents, and say, what are you doing now that's working? What's your return on investment? What are you doing now that's not working? How does it need to be tweaked, or do we just ditch it all together and take your marketing dollars somewhere else? So I do a lot of that around helping people get to whatever the next level is.
What has been the best marketing channel that you've seen for people to get either more listings or more deals under contract in your area?
Yeah, well, there's a couple of things that I think are working really well. One of them is social media. I've got a couple of really, really busy agents who they only do social media. So we have a lot of conversation around it's so affordable if it's not free. And everybody's like this, like, well, I don't want to be on camera, or I don't know what to say, or I'm not a full-time content manager. I don't know how to create these things. So I spend a lot of time with agents helping them get comfortable in something that feels natural to them in doing that sort of thing. And there could be agents that are like, look, Michelle, I've been in the business 100 years and I was successful way before social media happened. And why do I need to get on it now? You don't have to. Right. But I think you might be missing some opportunity. And if you're okay with missing the opportunity, letting somebody else get the piece of the pie, then go about your business. I'm not mad. I'm not going to yell at you. But I also think and it's not just for millennials or people that feel comfortable on social media. There's all sorts of different age groups that are appealing to all sorts of people on social media that are getting customers to reach back out to them and say, can you help me?
So are any of the investors that you're working with using social media to go direct to seller, or is it more for like other relationships?
I think there's a few that are going to direct to seller, but it's more of along the lines of they still have to get online and give something of value. They have to appeal to people's fears. Like, what is it that these sellers are afraid of, and why are they willing to sell? And hopefully they're willing to sell, with a good deal. So it's a good deal for the investor. So I think absolutely could an investor get on there and say, hey, this is how I can help you. This is what, maybe these are some of your fears, overcoming those things. I don't think that would be a bad idea. I also think, we have a lot of technology, places to search, lists to get, certain parameters that we can help investors with and say, if you're looking in this area, or you're looking in this state, or you're looking in this town or this county, what are you looking for specifically? Is it loan to value? Is it, equity picture? Is it interest rate? Is it location? And maybe we can pull some lists if they are cold call pros and they want to pick up the phone and start dialing for dollars. That's some of the things that I've seen work. And And of course, messaging is key, right? You can't be a robot. You have to have something compelling to talk about. So that's where I like to come in and just help people like, what are you going to say? And who cares?
Awesome.
Yeah,
Awesome.
I had a manager back in the day. They always used to say, "So what?
Right.
Like, who cares?"
Yeah.
Right? Based on your message. So what?
Yeah. Yeah.
That's
It has to be compelling. You know, you have to have a compelling story or something that you're saying, a good hook and something to get people's attention. I mean, that's just marketing 101. And I'm not a marketing genius. I just talk to people in this industry every day, all day. And we either brainstorm great ideas or I steal great ideas and share them with everybody else. And I'm not afraid to say that.
I love it. So shout out to Joel Houston if you're watching to the So What. And Michelle, what part of Colorado do you cover? Like, how do people reach out to you?
Yeah,
they're doing
I'm
business.
all I want to do is follow your social media now because I'm sure you say some awesome stuff. So yeah, how do we get a hold of you and how do we know you more?
Okay, thanks for asking. So, you know, there's a number of ways you can reach me. Obviously, my email is the best. I don't mind putting it in the chat. I'll happy to do that. I don't mind sharing my cell phone, and I'm on all the social media channels: Facebook, Instagram, TikTok. I do love doing ridiculous things, and I'll tell you, you know, I post business stuff and I get a few views, and then I post really stupid, ridiculous stuff and I get a ton of views. So it just goes to show you,
you know,
right? It goes to show you nobody cares. Nobody cares until I'm doing something silly. But I think it's sort of a popularity contest. Unfortunately, on social media, you have to kind of get the branding going before it becomes.
What's the silliest thing you've done on social media?
The silliest thing, you know how they have how many more weeks of winter we're going to have with Punxsutawney, whatever his name is, Phil.
Yep.
Right.
Yep.
That little dude. I kind of reacted that by crawling out from underneath my bed, and I just kind of did this. I did this whole thing about what's the real estate market going to do, and I crawled out from underneath my bed, and I had my laptop and my coffee mug and my, you know, and I came out from underneath the bed. So that was probably the most ridiculous.
That's hilarious.
What's the most ridiculous thing you've ever done on social media?
I sunned my butthole.
You did what?
The shower scene?
That was the second
silliest. I think, I think the shower scene has to be up there.
There was, yeah. I've done some pretty weird stuff on my social media. So
you got to follow him.
Well,
I was going to say, now I'm following him.
Follow each other and we'll give each other ideas.
Yes.
So we're going to be out of time here real soon, but there's a couple of things we're going to ask you real quick. First,
quickie questions.
If you have your phone on you, can you pick it up real quick, real fast?
Yeah.
And just open up a browser.
Okay.
And tell us the last thing you Googled.
What did I Google last? I Googled Turkish. I Googled Turkish soap opera Early Bird.
Amazing. I'm not even going to ask what that is about, but
come on. I'm so anxious to tell you.
Tell me then.
Okay. I was having coffee with a realtor and she was talking about this hunky donkey. Yeah. We could buy coffee for our realtor partners, by the way.
Oh.
So reach out, Colorado realtors. I'll buy you.
California, you can't do that.
Wow.
Isn't that crazy? So yeah, she was telling me about a hunky donkey actor that's on there and it's all subtitled and he's really cute. And she was showing me his abs. So I Googled like, where can I watch that?
I want more. I want more Turkish abs.
She might want to see the sunning the butthole thing.
Maybe.
Maybe. I don't know. All right. What are you reading right now, Michelle? You've got such a great mindset and positive outlook. I'm just curious. What are you reading?
Oh, well, you know, I'm one of those stupid people that reads like 3 different books at once. What am I reading? I'm reading Atomic Habits.
Great book.
Which is, yeah. And then I'm also reading a really crazy for fun book, Verity.
Okay.
It's totally creepy and weird, but it's fantastic.
Amazing.
Ooh,
amazing.
I love it.
And then last thing, what is something super ordinary that you've never done before? For instance, she's never eaten a hamburger.
I know. How can that be? Like, that's one of my favorite things to eat.
I know.
I'm weird.
It's super weird.
Ordinary thing. An ordinary thing. Gosh, you know, I'm pretty adventurous. So I don't think there's anything ordinary that I haven't done or tried or eaten or drank or, you know, I'm just, right? Like I haven't bungee cord jumping. That's not ordinary, but millions of people do that. And there's no way, and you know what, I'm ever going to do that.
She's so wild. She just said, I've never bungee jumped, but everything else I've done.
Yeah, I think so. Pretty
much. She probably like skydived.
Have you skydived?
No, I haven't done that, but I would. I've been in a helicopter before, which was really fun. Been on the back of a motorcycle, but I've never driven one myself, which I would like to do. Is that ordinary?
I mean, it's not really ordinary, but right. Let's just say that you're the most adventurous title person we've ever had on this show. Ever.
Oh, wow.
Also, you've been an absolute pleasure to talk to you today. And I want to let everybody know who's tuning in, whether you watch this live or if you watch this in the
later
week or later on, you absolutely want to talk to Michelle about doing business at Fidelity Title. So we're going to give your information out one more time. Michelle, if you would, tell us your email address.
Okay, it's Michelle, Michelle dot, and then my last name, which is spelled CIMINO at FNF.com. So Fidelity National Financial.com, FNF.com.
Amazing. And then we'll just give them your IG too, so that people can see that.
Yeah, crazy. Perfect. I think my Instagram is Mitch _ not Shelly. Let me check. Actually, if you search for Michelle at Fidelity Title, it should come up.
Okay. Search Michelle at Fidelity Title, guys, and follow her. You've been an incredible guest. Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you so much, Michelle. We learned a lot today. I mean, I'm like 100%. Seriously still shocked about this like closing together business.
I'm glad that's what really resonated with everybody. They're like, we're not closing in Colorado ever. Yeah, we're never going there.
It could be a really funny sketch, like a skit, you know, like this to us. Oh, I got it. What we really need to do is what happens when you have like liberals and like Democrats and Republicans sitting across from each other trying to close a deal. That's got to be fun.
That would be hilarious. That would make for a good skit. I'm gonna write that down.
I think so.
I think so too.
Thank you all for tuning in to Title Talk. We love you guys so much.
Yes, we do.
And we will see you all in a couple of weeks. Thank you, Michelle. You're incredible. And to the rest of you, mwah.